So Peter Todd, who is, spoke to Satoshi when he was like 14, 15. His latest quotes are, Bitcoin is dead, mining is over, they will regulate Bitcoin, sunship will come. Wow.
Boom, we're back. Pod 89. You know what it is, bitches. The 4Bs, brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ. Still debatable on that one, hey? So Never Look, aka the Excellence of Execution, and for our gender neutral fans, yes, Mrs. No Show is still
the
Mrs.
ESG
No
strategist.
Hey, we're ticking those boxes, right? Turn it down.
Sweet. How are we all this week? How's Bitcoin life feeling for you?
It just seems a little bit quiet at the moment. I'm taking the time to brush up on my financial knowledge of fiat finance.
I've been scouring Lynn Alden's website. She just did a podcast with another podcast that we won't talk about because we won't big up another one, but just the way she talks about finance and the history of money, it just rattles off her tongue like it's committed to memory as though she was there, but she wasn't. It's unbelievable. And her articles on how the Fed's gone broke, I would definitely recommend that. And then QE, quantitative easing. So, but yeah, that's been occupying my time.
Yeah, I think there's the thing is, like, obviously we say it a bit of a joke there, like, reading up on fiat finance, but it is super important. I don't think you can do enough reading on the history of money. There's so much, obviously, the Bitcoin standard summarizes it great, but that's just, it feels to me that's like the spine. But then you want all the ribs, all the little tentacles that come off that. There's so much more knowledge. And then so when you listen to someone like Lynn, the reason she can talk so competently and so confidently on so many subjects is she can always just reference back to, this is time, this is when the bond market did that. This is when oil prices did this. And she's not just looking at what's happened today. She's then basing it back over the last 200 years. This is a pattern, or it isn't a pattern. This is the first time ever this has happened. So she knows when something's outrageous or when something's just, this happens all the time. And you only get to that point by really understanding like 100-year, if not 1,000-year back on the history
100%.
of money.
But it's also understanding like the current status, all the different offerings. What the hell do they mean? And it's like, it's really digging in because there's so much BS, and it's so you don't get the wool pulled over your eye, because whilst I am pretty much committed to Bitcoin, I do also have fiat investments. So it's important for me to understand that because we don't know when hyper Bitcoinization is going to happen. And I have got to find a way to ultimately be able to retire, because I don't want to be working till I'm 90, till I drop dead.
Yeah. From the last interview that she did as well, there was a real key question asked or told, and she confirmed it, is that the social care is set to run out in the year 2035 in terms of they won't be able to afford it.
But at that point,
if things, good.
I was just going to say, at that point, do you stop paying tax? Like if they turn around and go, we can't support the NHS anymore, do you not have to pay the 12.5% anymore?
Yeah, and was that for the US, I assume?
Yeah, that was the US, US social care,
Yeah, because obviously they have quite a bit of private care. I think they're actually one of the few countries that don't care for the elderly anyway. As standard, you have to pay for your own. There is no state pension or anything like that in America. So if you get ill when you're old and you don't have the money, then you die, basically. You stay ill.
Is this a mixture between debt and the fact that the Western populations have started dwindling and we can't actually afford to pay for a top balanced population?
So I was just going to say, inflation.
All they'll do is just print more money.
Yeah,
and we'll really go into we're really going to hyperinflation then.
We're in a very weird situation, aren't we, at the moment, where I think the standard of living and the quality of life is gone up to such an extent where we do have a very much an aging population. They're very old at the top of the chain. It's almost becoming like an upside down Christmas tree because the young aren't breeding. They're not having kids. So we are in a population decline, which essentially just means we're going to have a load of old people that are not productive, that are only taking from society now. But unfortunately,
but this is why they took out the age limit. You know, you had to retire at 65 because they saw this coming. But it wasn't to be nice because people love working. It was because we need people working.
Yeah. But what's even worse about it, right, is essentially this is a Ponzi scheme. We know it is. It is a Ponzi scheme. So what essentially has happened is obviously the people being paid off now in their pensions are just being paid off with our money. You're paying off the people that originally in the scam are being paid off by the new people being scammed. But because we're on a upside down Christmas tree where there's not going to be enough people to pay the people at the top, essentially it collapses. Because the young aren't breeding, aren't having kids. So there's less and less of us. So eventually in the next, it wouldn't surprise me, around 2035, probably around then would be my guess for when pensions completely get stolen, because there's no point, right? It's like what's happened to Celsius, FTX, all these. Once your debt is so high, that's just like your hole is 4 billion, say, but in quite government's terms, it's going to be 40 to 400 billion. Once you are like, let's just say your debt is 4 billion. Once you only have 1 billion in the bank, you don't even bother paying out the billion because you just go, there's 3 billion hole here, so we're just going to steal the billion, and we can't get in any more trouble. You can't, can you?
No,
3 billion of losses or 4 billion. It's the same. What's the difference of having 90% of your customers pissed off or 100%? It's still the same level of criminal activity, really. So you might as well run off of the money before it's all gone. Well, that's what I think is going to happen in around.
I think something slightly different, which is why we're being pushed on with CBDCs, because we always, as Bitcoiners, talk around it's a complete control system. It's basically a digital food token when you're a good boy, but I think it's actually being put in place so they can inflate the monetary supply when they want and afford all these different programs. And if a company starts trying to raise their price, so we discussed it in the group, I think it was around increases in telecom bills. You're saying how come? And I was like, wages have gone up because their demands have gone up because their bills have gone up. So they have to pay their employees 10% more. Then also their raw materials have gone up by 40%. And it's like that. So you want to charge 40% more for steel? No one can buy your steel for a month. Yeah. And I think that is what is going to happen with CBDC, where they're going to lock companies out or producers out until they actually start behaving and get back in line.
Yes. So at the moment, there's barely any private companies that exist anymore. They killed them all over lockdown. So all the businesses we buy from, like 90% of people that are buying online, they're buying off like 5.
Yeah, but you're talking about the small companies. I'm talking more medium to big. So I'm saying like these big ones who have got massive power and can just raise their powers. Governments will be like, I'll literally go the US will go, no one pay. Shell today. Shell need to learn. Yeah, but it'll be something along those lines.
Yeah, but you do realise, come on, these huge companies and the governments, they're one and the same. The real enemy here is BlackRock and Vanguard. They sit above governments and these huge companies. It's all one and the same. So when when O2 put my bill up by 14%, that isn't really, there's no CBDC in the world where a government will come in and go, oh, stop that O2. O2 just drive more profits down the bottom line to Vanguard and BlackRock. They want those prices as high as they can. And in reality, what are you going to do? Move to another mobile phone company? Okay, they own them as well. Oh, and guess what? They're up by 40% as well.
Yeah, they'll be doing
there's only like 3 providers.
14.4 as well.
It's just the illusion of choice. It's like what we get with our government kind of leaders. You have 2 different people, one with a red tie, one with a yellow tie, and you just go, they're both the fucking same. And it's the same with mobile phones, media, insurance, banking. You go through everything, like your shopping, energy.
But I think this is where it's got to hit a point where there's got to be some control, and that's why I kind of think that there's going to be another side to the CBDC, and it isn't going to be good. It's going to be a completely dominated environment by that kind of like upper crust of elites.
Oh yeah.
Or you've got the other thing, which is you will own nothing and you'll be happy because they will be your feudal lords. It will be a feudalistic system, but you will be happy. Don't worry. And you'll eat gruel, which is factory produced because it's too expensive to farm cows.
I just want to double back on what I said, by the way, because I've been able to locate the interview on what Lynn said. It was social security, to be exact.
Okay.
So so social security payouts would not be able to happen by the year 2035. And she then went on to say that they wouldn't be able to pay out because the money wouldn't be there. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have any money, because of course they would then have the money from the taxes. But we all know that even though they tax us whatever they do, which is a hell of a lot already, the tax money that they get is still insufficient. So in the year 2035, there could be potential haircuts for people with money in the bank, which again comes back to those people that are using Bitcoin will avoid this. And then equally, if you're on CBDCs as well, they might try to cut the coupons and the digital coupons.
But why do they need to do haircuts when they can just inflate the monetary supply?
Why not do both?
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, they give you a haircut and you don't even know because they've inflated the monetary supply by so much.
Yeah,
that's why I think a haircut will lead to riots, whereas people just go, oh, it's just inflation, it's greedy company. It's not the fact they printed 40% more money in the last 2 years.
But it will happen slowly because we're talking about the year 2035, by that point, it will have already been creeping up. The signs are there now, 12 years earlier. Someone do the quick maths on what number pod we'll be on by then. And ultimately, we can look back and say, pod 89, I told you so.
Yeah.
I think the other flip side of this, like the 2035, is in the UK, I think we have a lot of immigration from India, and I read a stat today, and I think they've either topped out or they're very close to topping out before they go into a population decline. So they're saying the UK won't be able to depend upon immigrants coming in to top up our population for so long, because literally, that's what we need in order for the Keynesian system to function. Is we need to be able to print more money to be swirling around because of growing population. But if you have a dwindling population, it backfires more quickly.
Yeah. So any Ponzi scheme, you've got to have more people at each layer. The second there's less people in the layer, it collapses.
So literally, at the moment, we're kind of going, oh, we don't want immigrants. We don't want immigrants. And the Conservatives are like, yeah, to the media, we don't want them. And we're like, come in. And you realise what's going on.
Yeah, just done some quick maths. We'd be on around about 677 minus 5% for holidays and
Oh wow. But it's like I always said, it's if they don't steal your pension completely and just go bust, they'll just steal it through taxes. So people don't. The main reason why people do pensions is they say it's tax efficient, and I go, okay, what tax are you going to be paying in 30 years' time? Oh, you don't know? How do you know it's tax efficient then? You think it is. They can change the rules at any time. And you're talking about a 30-year period? And that sounds like a crazy gamble to me. In this case of, oh, no, but it's been fine now. It's if you're retiring tomorrow, yeah, it's tax efficient. Hang on, maybe you did all right. You managed to survive in a world where in the 50 years since 1971 till now, where fiat was booming, and you rode it up. And this might be a good time actually just to pivot, because there's other people that have been riding it up in the NFT land, and you had some You had some conversations today, didn't you?
I had some interesting conversations today, and like
our toxic Bitcoin Maxi group for articulating the views that you heard, and you almost seemed to be believing them yourself, and it was just go on. What happened today?
Do you know what? So obviously, I've got to be respectful as a customer, but
toxic.
But we are toxic. we are toxic here, and I was just simply sitting back and learning and like understanding, as in why would you do this? But challenging at the same time, being like, but you do know X and you do know Y. So ultimately, it was there's various different metaverses in which you can buy NFTs on, and the NFTs are not interoperable. I'm sure potentially many listeners already know this, although I'm sure the listeners that listen to this podcast know that we're only Bitcoin only. So you might not know this. But ultimately, let's say you buy on platform A, you can then not just then take your digital NFT that you own to then go on to another metaverse.
Can you not just upload the JPEG to their website?
No, you cannot.
Exactly. Good, but then there's two. Oh no, you've broken scarcity.
Yeah, well, you know, apparently, so Marvel released their NFTs on one platform, and DC released theirs on another, and you can't go on to the other to show off your Marvel and vice versa. And then, you know, effectively, you know, I know we talk about displays, you know, you've got a couple of displays there in the background. There should be, you know, a display NFT frame company, I'm sure, that where people will want to show it off or show their digital art off in real life. But only if they're allowed to take it off.
What was this guy salute? Is he building the platform that's going to be the one?
No, he's just buying and selling and holding.
He thinks there's going to be one blockchain to rule it all. All the NFTs are going onto one platform.
There needs to be there needs to be. So it is, but I said effectively you can see NFT metaverses collapsing. You'll see NFT metaverses consolidating as well. Like we're saying, to the outside public, it'll look like there's lots, but really there'll be one, or someone will build a layer over the top for someone to then just, you know, be able to do all of this. But it's not there right now. I see the application in online gaming in terms of, you know, you already do it, whether it's a FIFA pack or a skin on Call of Duty or something like that.
The question is then what does the blockchain add to it? Because
exactly.
you already have scarce items in games. We know they're not really scarce. It's just that the centralized entity says there's only 1,000 Ronaldos. So if you can get a Ronaldo, then you're going to be buzzing for your team. But we know if I could get a job there, I could add 10,000 Ronaldos into the game. But then they could delete them again because it's an editable database, right?
Correct.
Why do you need a blockchain to have FIFA packs?
Yeah.
What does the stamp on the blockchain do? With the art thing, you can give them art anyway. You could send them an email. You could just send them a tweet. Like, there you go. You simply, game, isn't it? You get a little picture of the guy and you get to play him. That's the whole point.
You simply just don't understand because you're a bigot.
I love it when
the funny thing is about NFTs, right, is it seems to be where in FIFA land, right, you buy a pack and it's almost like the NFTs came secondary. They realized they could make these little micro payments, which quite grew to macro payments, really. Like
I would say macro payments now.
Paying thousands for these packs. But like obviously the upside of it is you pay for the pack and you get to play for the player, how the player plays for you, and he's a better player than you had before, and all that kind of stuff. In NFT land, they've done it the other way. It's like, buy the JPEG, buy the flat image of something, whether it be a football player or an ape or whatever. And at some point in the future, you'll be able to play with this guy in a game. But none of the games ever launched. And maybe the odd one did, but they were awful. Nowhere near as good as any of this. Name the shittest game on like the PlayStation 1. and that's still better than an NFT game. So it's like they've got the cart before the horse. It's like you need to have the platform in the game, and then maybe you can sell add-ons and little things to boost. And it's the whole pay-to-play thing. I don't.
We covered this as well,
where the blockchain comes in. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
Yeah, we covered this because we talked about like Decentraland and the sandbox as well, where people are buying pockets of land in this digital world. And it's like, okay, that's great. And they are obviously paying macro payments for this. But who's to say that anyone's ever going to use it in the future? And again, as
it's the same like any shitcoin. It's the same as any shitcoin project, isn't it? It always ends up promises for future. Yeah. And once you've given them all your money, or the public's given all their money, where is the drive or the need to actually complete the work? Because they've already got your money. They don't give a shit. They've just raised $1 billion. Bye, sucker. We've seen it with what's his name? Logan Paul. He's done it 3 times, hasn't he? Some dino egg thing, stick dicks. And what was his crypto called?
Dink
Doink.
Dink Doink. I swear there's another one as well. I think there's 4 actually, which he's done rug pulls on.
A collector of them all.
Oh God, I wish I could get hold of some stick dicks, but they're just rare now. I do feel we're kind of like going on a tangent because we said we're Bitcoin only, but we're now spending our time talking about shitcoin. Yeah, so much so that I had to do my recurring Tuesday buy. Just to make myself feel better.
Yeah, no, it's just good because I think if it arises organically, I think it's good because obviously you've had with someone talking about it today, and then I just want to give Mrs. No Show a shout out purely for the fact that they were obviously at an event today, watching a presentation where someone clearly is way too balls deep in their NFTs, went so far to say that in the metaverse there will be AI. The AI will need insurance, and we even need insurance to allow real life humans to give their estates to AI. Because
how do you pronounce that word? Waifu?
A waifu, yeah.
Yeah, so basically this guy blatantly has a waifu and he is planning on having a digital waifu.
But this isn't even at a crypto bullshit shitcoin event, is it? This is at a proper insurance event. Everyone sat there in fucking shirts and ties and all that, being really serious. And fair play to Mrs. No Show. She was recording some of it. We could hear the audio. This was real. This was real. Like the guy was literally got even questioned on it, going, "How can you give an AI your estate? Like, what are we doing? Why would you ever have a will that goes to an AI?" And he just answered it, going, "An AI will be like your real wife or girlfriend. It will be the same." And just left it at that. You go.
It would be easier though, wouldn't it? You could train the AI.
Oh, but it's like it's not real though, is it? Like an AI is just
but you say this, but there's people who give away their estates to like catteries or their cat or their dog. So you're saying in what world people will do it, but it'll still be the minority. This will not be the majority which does this kind of stuff. It'll be the people who shag pillows who do this.
The thing is though, at least if you're giving it to the cattery, right? The cattery fucking exists. It's down the road. And I get it. Like giving to charity and giving to worthwhile event like causes, that's fine. I have nothing against that. You probably should give to your
But when you give it to Mr. Mittens, who's 17 years old and is overdue to die, where's it go once Mr. Mittens dies?
Well, I also had a different view of the whole insurance thing, is that they're seeing this as a way to prey on people and obviously to exploit them out of more money, because people won't put in the work that is needed. We know this. Humans are lazy. They won't put in the work to actually understand Bitcoin, and everything else is a gamble, right? So when they do that, they'll be preying on you to be like, oh, you could lose your AI, you could lose your crypto, you could lose your stick dicks. give it to us, we'll look after it, and we'll retain the security for you. And really, it's just money for old rope. So they're looking at the addressable market and seeing that all of this money, how can they get a piece of it?
Yeah, and all I can see is they're going to have to write their T's and C's so carefully, because there's not a single Bitcoiner who would ever take out insurance on their Bitcoin. Like, we all know, we're self-sovereign. I don't need any insurance company to come help me out. I know if I lose my Bitcoin, I lose my Bitcoin. It's my own fault.
Yeah.
So the only people taking this on are going to be NFTs and shitcoiners. Now, these people are morons mainly, and they're going to lose their shitcoins all the time. They're either going to scam, and they're just going to do silly things. They're going to get hacked. So the insurance companies, imagine like I'm some moron with all these dumbass NFTs, right? And then I'll just post my seed into the first email that comes through to go, oh, your ledger's been hacked. Type in your seed here to resecure it. They're just going to type it in. All the NFTs are going to go flying off. So what happens here? Can I just phone up my insurance company and go, oh yeah, I just got hacked. I want my money back. It doesn't make any sense. It's just good luck insuring this type of space, right? It's just one of those things where
people lose it through negligence and that kind of stuff, which they're doing. Like, if you had a car or cash and someone said, I am FedEx, you owe me £50 to have this parcel. So you go, here's your £50, and then you open the parcel, it's just a brick.
Yeah.
But your house insurance is going to go, fuck off, you're an idiot. And that's what we're doing with the NFTs. They will not pay out.
Yeah. Well, it's literally there. In using that analogy, it's like someone just phoning you up going, send me your car keys. You're like, okay.
Who are you? I'm your bank.
you post the car keys to them, and then they turn up the next day and drive your car off, and like, oh, didn't know that's going to happen. And like your car insurance wouldn't pay out either then, and that doesn't even address the scams, right? How many people have we seen that are pretending to be hacks, or literally FTX and all that? The last couple of days, they're like, oh, we got hacked, bro. The last couple of 100 million got hacked. So what? Yep. And how do you prove these things? It's just because it's all freaking digital, which addresses are what, and what it all goes across different jurisdictions. I could be sending money to Thailand. They could then send it to China, to Russia. And it's just a whole different ballgame, right? And for insurance companies to try and get involved in this space, they're either going to get fleeced, or they're going to have to just sell products to complete morons that have so many caveats in. That basically means every time they ring up to claim, they can't claim because there's a caveat in there. But it's just another little insight into kind of, I think, we're still very much, I think, in the space of blockchain, not Bitcoin, in the corporate world.
Unfortunately, it's coming, isn't it? And you can see it.
It's sad because, obviously, when I left the corporate world about 5 years ago now, that was where we were as well. We were in Bitcoin's great, but it's probably failed as money, probably not that exciting. But blockchain's where it's at. This is the exciting thing, and this is what we need to be building all our businesses on. Identity, insurance, media, all this stuff is all going to get. And I thought during all the crash and the explosion that all the NFTs went to shit, all the shit coins have gone to shit. They're all down like 99.7% now. They're like, you'd think the enthusiasm and people wouldn't have the balls to get on stage and go, the metaverse and NFTs and AI of NFTs is somehow the future. But it happened today. And unfortunately, it probably just means, in my mind, it goes, well, we need to go lower then, don't we? We got to go lower.
Yeah.
99.7% wasn't enough for them. We got to go down another, because the good thing about the NFTs, if they've gone from 100 grand down to like 1 grand, we can still go another 90% from there. They need to go to 10 or 100. We just need to go lower just to completely destroy that space and go, because come on, I don't want the next evolution of whatever scam bit to be. It's just NFTs with AI. I'm like, oh, come on. Maybe it will be. AI
maybe that is the next stage, because we've been scratching our heads. But I do feel like we're spending too much time talking about NFTs and shitcoins. Like, even for me. And you know that I'm a lover of Shib and Dink Doink.
All right, let's move on then.
All right. Okay. Well, let's kick off Pod 89 with the first story. and we are covering off Bitcoin addresses that hold over $10 is at an all-time high, which I think is worthwhile mentioning, given the fact that we also covered off how to be in the top 1% of Bitcoiners, right? So that was in pod 87, I think it was. So ultimately, $10 is nothing. And you could even get that from some exchanges giving out referrals, right? And just holding that.
You can just do some shitcoin lessons on Coinbase to get you $10.
Yeah.
You didn't have to put a single.
Apart from when we suspend you from it.
Yeah, for the entire fucking account. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has happened just, and I was looking at the chart, and there's a couple of peaks going through here. So it was around about March 2021, and then around about November 21, and then what is it, in about March 22 as well, and then we've hit again this year. So there's been a couple of peaks where it's kind of like touched. And I was thinking to myself, what would cause these peaks? So lately, right, I'd love to know, how has Nigeria impacted this? Because we know that it's a big issue. We know that Argentina's got big issues. We know that Turkey's had big issues. And so there's been things floating around there which could have impacted that. And I'd love to know, well, if it was ever possible, are those Bitcoin addresses, where are they based? Because that'd be lovely to know what's actually been the driver for that. Because at the moment I'm looking and thinking, it's good as a Bitcoiner, but what's the cause?
Yeah, I'd imagine you're right. Because obviously, we're obviously looking at a chart here. Actually, I could share it if you want.
Yeah.
How do I share my screen? That one. Share. So yeah, so we're looking at this chart here. So as you can see, like the charts of what Bitcoin addresses with $10 and the overall price of Bitcoin, it virtually follows. It's a mirror image, really. But you can see there's a divergence around the middle to the end of 2021, where the price doesn't really follow, because it's typically been a lagging indicator, right? It's below the price. But now the Bitcoin that has over $10 in it of addresses is actually above the line.
So you said that the whale accounts have gone down, but the $10 ones have gone up. So you're ending up with poorer people taking it on, what I take from it, which is why I'm drawn towards a kind of like Nigeria, Argentina, Turkey hypothesis.
Yeah. El Salvador's as well.
Yeah, I think you're probably spot on. Yeah, because
El Salvador's a very good shout. Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, well, there it is. Right, El Salvador, wasn't that around the middle of 2021?
Yeah, that's right. September.
So I think what's happened here is, as the price declines, what tends to happen is, without being any big surprise, people sell their Bitcoin, right? We know people come in, don't believe it, the price goes down, the amount of Bitcoin holders goes down. But this time in 2021, the price went down, but the number of people holding $10 held. And it's still following the pattern largely, but there was a big decline around the end of 2021, 2022, that it didn't decline over the price, and we stayed higher. And now we're all-time highs, when the price has taken a little bit of an uptick, but fundamentally, as this post says, Bitcoin is still 65% down from all-time high. So
if you have another look at it as well, so when was the last all-time high? Was it January 2018 or December?
It was November 2021, wasn't it? All-time.
So yeah, by the way, it was September 2021 for El Salvador. So that would be spot on.
So you got the 2017 peak there. And if you look, it kind of balances off afterwards. So you got the peak, and as people spin it off, it kind of disappears. But then you got your new level of hodlers. So you got this amount of accounts are holding Bitcoin. So you kind of got the new believers as such, the people that go, I believe that Bitcoin's the next thing. And I think it is quite representative, but it is quite weird in that it's actually the highest it's ever been now. Yes. So if you look back at Jan 18, you got the highest amount of holders, but then it definitely decreases when you get it to level off afterwards.
Yeah. And I think that I didn't realize this until we were discussing it, but it's the classic, they talk about the golden cross and all that.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, like I said, the amount of holders that people had $10 of Bitcoin, it was always behind the price, but now we're above it, and it's just seemingly the gap of the price and how many people hold $10 is just getting wider, which suggests that the amount of people believing in Bitcoin is massively on the pump at the moment. It's on the rise, and the price just hasn't caught up yet.
Well, it's also those countries as well, like, they're having no choice. Like the Nigerian government are destroying their currency. I think we covered that about 4 or 5 pods ago. Yeah. Argentina, we talk about it constantly. They've been doing it for 100 years. These people are fleeing to Bitcoin.
Yeah. I'd probably keep a look on that, a close look, and just see that continuing to go higher and higher.
The only thing that surprises me actually is that the number's still relatively low on the number of wallets that have that. It's about 25 million that has over $10 of Bitcoin. So we need a 1,000x on that number. That should be 2.4 billion people have $10 of Bitcoin, not 24 million. So again, for anyone that thinks that they're too late, Bitcoin's gone. 24 million people have $10 of Bitcoin. Or at least, and that's addresses. Actually, that's addresses. There's actually less
addresses. Yeah,
people have multiple addresses. I know I have tens. So that 24 million in reality probably represents, I don't know, 10 million people.
Yeah,
that literally means 10 million people in Bitcoin. Really, that's kind of like, not only is this early, it's just freaking. You're still an early adopter. You're still virtually in the innovator phase, and people say they're too late.
Yeah. So we go for, there's probably 10 million unique wallets. Let's go for that estimate. Really, the next big one is then 100 million. So when we're starting to get decent size adoption to the size of a big country, and then a billion's obviously another landmark then.
Yeah. A billion means you've won.
Yeah.
It's over.
I think 100 million is pretty much you're starting to take over multiple countries, and that is a real big landmark. So that's the one which I'll be
bigger
begging
than UK,
for.
Bigger than the entire UK in Bitcoin.
It depends how many people we can try and import to make sure we can keep the Keynesian fiat fraud going.
Yeah. Oh man. But then we have Jack Dorsey back on the pod.
I was going to say, what do you think could influence that? And the key thing for me is CBDCs. So when people realize what CBDCs are, and we know, I think
they're few good, aren't they?
Yeah, so they say in the 87 different global projects that are happening amongst various different governments, it would only take a percentage of all of those individual countries' populations to then think, I don't think this is good. I'll get a bit of Bitcoin on the side of it. So, we've always said that even though the CBDCs are bad, they're actually also good because they'll actually highlight the benefits of free money.
They'll only punish bad people.
Yeah.
It's true. A lot of the people that use fiat now, they buy everything hook, line, and sinker. That they're not talking out about lockdown. They're not talking out about stolen elections, Ukraine war, and all that type of stuff. It's going to be us that gets punished. And if anything, with the CBDC world, the incentive will be when we get punished, our friends and family will also get punished to a certain degree and go, oh, you can't have this week because you are associated directly with someone that is now banned from this, and it'll list you. And I know I'm going to be listed there because you're associated with Mr. All In. You can't buy your bread this week or something. So my mum will be ringing me up being like, stop chatting shit on Twitter. I can't buy any bread. I'm like, sorry, mum. The government needs to have it. And I'll buy you some bread with some Bitcoin and I'll send it around. Don't worry. But that's the way they control it, because that's literally what happens in China. Anyone think this is a conspiracy theory or anything? Their whole WeChat thing, that's exactly how it happens. That you have a credit score that exists in WeChat. And if you talk out about the government, if they think you're doing something wrong, they will either freeze your accounts or limit you to various things, not let you travel on trains and all that type of stuff. And not only do they do it to you, they punish the people connected to you. So those people then go, look, you either need to stop doing what you're doing, or I have to cut myself off from you So when you do something wrong, I don't get punished too. And that's the best way. Like the best way, or what's the way to get someone like me, right? You can do anything you want to me. I'm gonna go fuck you. But then you limit my mum from going shopping. I'm like, motherfucker. Like that's how you control me. Then I'm like, well, okay, I'll be quiet. So you leave my mum alone. And that's how you do it. It's a very clever control technique.
Were you going to say something, Dr. Evil, to
No, I'm looking forward to the first country to have CBDCs introduced. I think Trudeau will want to be the first, and that'll be an absolute clusterfuck because he'll want to do everything straight away and get that control. And I think
how nice his WEF crown will be when he gets that done.
Yeah, but imagine if he gets the CBDCs and he just starts trying to do things, like that. It opens up to what it is straight away. So it's a test country. Bang, He wants to restrict people. He wants to do this and this. And everyone goes, oh, shit, look at what he's doing. Because
he did it anyway, didn't he? Even in the fiat world. He froze bank accounts, all the truckers.
Threatened to put down dogs, take children off the truckers.
Yeah. So he kind of did it anyway, but it just would have been even easier if he had CBDCs. He could have done it.
I hope that Canada's the first country just because I think it's the best chance.
Well, you say the first country, but as we said, China is doing.
No, I said first Western country.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because mainstream news and media won't cover that because it will reveal their plans straight away.
I just think that everyone's like, "Oh, China, it's dystopian. It's China."
Yeah.
Whereas Canada, everyone's like, "Oh, they're so nice." And Trudeau, he's so good looking, and he must be nice.
He's a liberal,
and it's just like, but he did this and this, and they're just like, you sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, he literally arrested people for 60 days and then brought out a new law that went, if you abandon your animal for 30 days or more, we will kill it. It's like, well, hold on, you're holding me for 60, and I have my dog with me. Are you going to kill my dog? They're like, looks like you left your dog for 60 days. And
it was like anyone at the protest, you're obviously not taking care of your children. They'll be taken off you.
And slaughtered.
or taken to Epstein Island.
Yeah, fed directly to Bill Gates. Programming. Funny. He'll teach them how to code and they will have a fantastic life. And maybe sold on Balenciaga.
Anyway, next one. So Jack Dorsey's new Lightning service, is it called C equals? Is that how it's said? Or is there some special way of saying it?
I think so, yeah. C equals, yeah.
So my understanding of this is it's a way to almost have a commercial business to get the Lightning up to full capacity. Is that what it fundamentally is?
Yeah.
Does it? Remember we talked about so Lightning is kind of like your highways. So what was the thing which is the inter kind of like town and village connectivity, because there was a further development which everyone was looking at on top of Lightning?
Yeah, there was, yeah. I forget the term now.
It's just, my kind of question is, how does that fit into this? Because it's a really interesting area, but obviously it's relatively new. So it is quite hard to, understand the concepts.
Yeah, well, I think it's like lighthouses or something. But essentially you don't want those hubs anyway. And this is why this is both good and bad. But I think in the early stages, I think Jack absolutely understands. So one of the problems of Lightning at the moment is you literally need to have a Lightning channel between yourself and who you want to pay.
Yeah.
So if you're paying a huge provider, then chances are you will be able to find a path through and you'll be able to pay that person. But if anyone that's used Lightning, you can have plenty of payments will fail. You don't lose your money or anything bad like that. It just means that the payment, the transaction will fail because it couldn't find a route through the Lightning network to get it to the destination. It can't find enough hops in the chain. It's like a big mesh network. It's literally like my internet that I have here at my house. The provider I use can't service my property. But what it can do is service a load of houses that are close, and then they pass on the internet connection to others and others and others and others, and eventually it gets to me, and then they'd use me to pass it on to others. So they create this mesh network. That's very similar to Lightning, where you can't reach everyone, but you just need to reach some. But what the problem in Lightning at the moment is just people opening up a load of channels, and there is a cost of opening up a channel. You need to fund it. So if you want to pass, say, 100,000 satoshis from one place to another, you have to put 100,000 satoshis in that channel and just leave it there, and then you have to put another 100,000 satoshis as the payment, and then it transports it. So you need liquidity in the channels as well. So what Jack seems to be doing here is setting up a company which opens up a shit ton of channels and then provides liquidity for those channels so they can be used, which should just make payments across the network to be more reliable, which absolutely is required. If we were going to get, because at the moment I think the people using Lightning are kind of hardcore Bitcoiners, and we all know that sometimes when you do a Lightning transaction it fails, and all I tend to do is just do it again. And sometimes I'm doing it with someone on Twitter or something, and we'll actually open up a channel with each other and just go, look, have you got a node? And they're like, yeah. So okay, let's just fire and open up a Lightning channel, and I can't pay you at the moment, so can you open up a channel and I'll just pay you? That's how we're fixing these issues. That is not ready for mass adoption, right? Really. So something like what Jack's doing here will go, okay, you don't need to DM the person on Twitter and open up a Lightning channel between the two of you, because 99% of even Bitcoiners don't know how to open up a Lightning channel because they've never done it. I doubt you guys have ever done it.
No. So that's the point. Is there a business opportunity by independently opening up Lightning channels for people and then taking a cut of like 1-2%?
Yeah, you take a tiny fee. So there is being part of this, like doing the transactions, but obviously Lightning is near zero transaction fees. So I know some people that have set it up, and they were like they set up a load of channels that were connected to big stores and stuff. And I think they managed to make like a couple of grand a month or something from that. But that's doing millions of transactions. So you're nowhere near the 1 or 2%. That's the dream world. This is 0.01%. Because Lightning, like, you don't even notice it, right? It's to the point where you don't notice it. If I was to send you literally, like, say 50p of fiat, I would get charged 50.01p to send it to you. Right, like literally 1 or 2 sats. So I don't even notice. My balance doesn't even display the fact that the fee is gone. Whereas if I sent it on the main chain, the fee would be between 10p and £1 worth of fiat. You definitely see that. So that's where obviously the miners make the majority of their money. But in Lightning, I guess it's one of those, isn't it, where the core network is designed for the big transactions. In Lightning, at the moment, there's no money in it really. But I guess if this happened and Jack is right, and he makes a shit ton of the very important Lightning connections, and then trillions of transactions come this way, it'll be an absolute gold mine, because he got there first. This is almost like building the first roads in the new country that no one wants to go in yet. But then suddenly you have all the toll roads on it, and you go, oh, every time you pass, it's just 0.01p, and everyone's like, that's fine. And he goes, there's only 10 people going through a day now.
Really either.
There's going to be 1 billion people a day coming through this, and suddenly, and the thing is, with this type of thing as well, like, you only set up the channels once, really. Once they're set up, and I think the network even has built into it preferences of, if the channel worked before, then put it higher up in the choices next time. So if he creates a load of high confidence channels, then he will be the center of the Lightning network, and he will make a shit ton once the transactions start flowing through.
So the one, I was just going to say, the one which we talked about was Fedimint. So Fedimint kind of sounds like it goes on top of a layer to kind of like deal with those gaps, which we were talking about. So it does sound like it's still would work with the proposition which Jack's putting forward. Because I dug it out and put it in the chat, but it's not one which I think we've touched ever since. It's not one which I've actually come across on Bitcoin Twitter since we've talked about it as well.
Yeah, no, I forgot what.
Yeah, we haven't covered it since.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
But it looks good. I love like Jack's naming of his companies at the moment. Like this is from a company called TBD, and the business underneath that company it's called C equals.
Yeah,
he's just going so meta with all this, isn't he?
What I was going to say is he's also feeding into classic network effects. So what you said there, Mr. Orlin, is if everything works, people are just prone to just saying, okay, I'll just use that. And if more people use it, it's like seeing if there's a big queue outside of a store, you're more likely to go to the one which has the larger queue as opposed to the one with the smaller one, because you think, oh, right, well, these guys must know something that I don't know, so I'll join them, as opposed to being the rogue and going to the other one. And so I think he is doing the classic first mover advantage.
Yeah, apparently it's live now. So I'm gonna have to connect my line.
Live.
Apparently it's all active and C equals has a node and is there. I have to find its CLN. No, C Lightning is not. Anyway, I'm trying to Google it now to try and find out how to connect to it. But yeah.
Watch your space.
Get it on. Oh. Did you? I bet no one of you actually watched the episodes back, do you really?
Not really. No.
I tend to watch.
I hate watching them, listening to myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit cringe. Yeah, I need to like it. But I did put in the Inflation Weekly jingle last week.
Oh, I didn't go that far.
No.
What was the jingle?
It'll be this now. Oh, Janet Yellen that. Oh, Inflation Weekly. See, you can't see it, but I just played it.
Brilliant. So we're at the point of our favorite. Is that going to be the symbol?
I don't know if you guys ever heard of Rick Glassman. I doubt you have.
Only from what you said.
Oh no, that's Carl Pilkington.
No.
Rick Glassman's a comedian. Oh my god, his podcast is one of the funniest podcasts ever. He is constantly just does this, like cut to a clip. Oh, Janet Yellen that. Oh, Inflation Weekly. To a break, and his clips and his breaks are just like complete nonsense and just funny. Like I kind of just stole it from him. But yeah, we can.
Hey, if it works.
I'll just do this every week. Yeah. And if we get sued by Rick Glassman, that'd be the happiest day of my life. Yeah.
Talk
about it.
Inflation Weekly.
Cannot wait. He's just like literally coming in his own mouth.
Is this one? Is this one from you?
I don't think it was me who brought this. I think it's
this was a late story to the agenda.
Mr. Orlin. So it's on Marty Bent's website. So I had a read of it. Always quite interesting. So the title is "Don't Forget Shrinkflation Isn't Included in Inflation Numbers." It's a really valid point because you do always forget, and you know it's very common practice. Basically, the article is a bit of text, and it echoes kind of like the whole thing about inflation, but there's a lot of examples in there of where people have dropped things into Twitter, and he's echoed them. So I actually got this when I was in Tesco the other day. I was buying some cat food, and it used to be 48 pouches. Now it's 40, same price. So that's a cut in 20%.
Yeah,
and that's only happened over the last month.
The CPI would say zero inflation.
Yeah, it's still £13.70, but now it's 20% less. So it's absolutely phenomenal. These, I think there's things like cans of tuna. I think my favourite example though was some milk or oat milk or something like that. It went from 2 litres to 1.89 litres. So very precise, like they're trying to keep that, make sure they don't get drilled too much on the profit margin, but they need to take the reduction slightly, so they don't want to go down to 1.75 or 1.5 because the customers will really notice it. But it did make me wonder about some of the products, so like deodorant. So it's in those kind of like, cans. I don't know what they're made of. Is it aluminium? And they shrunk it by 10 or 15%. And you're kind of going, isn't the can the most expensive thing? So you're still making it. You still got most of the cost there. But there were a lot which are about 20%. So it does say to me, people are, trying to do their best with shrinkflation. And I think a lot of people are blaming greedy companies about this rather than actually realizing it's because of money which they've got has devalued. There you go. So deodorant.
Yeah.
I did wonder, changing that packaging sizing, surely that's costing you more than what you're saving. Are some people just taking advantage of it rather than just putting the price up?
It's a thinner canister and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it with zero coffee as well. 100 grams down to 90 grams. But also an increase in price as opposed to staying the same price.
There's a good example. I think it's near the end. It's Coffee Mate Whitener, whatever that is. I don't really understand what it is.
So in the US, sometimes they have, rather than milk, it's like a powdered milk.
Fucking disgusts me. There we go. It's their gulp. So they've decreased the size by, 10%?
Yeah.
But the price has gone up by, what's that, 15%?
15%, yeah.
So it's actually 25% difference there in what they've done. So that's one of the worst one. It's just kind of going, are they trying to fuck you there? I don't eat Krispy Kremes.
I found that shrinkflation or even inflation on small items. So you think, it may only be £1. So chewing gum, for example, it used to be 3 packs for £1. Now it's gone to £1.50. So it's not necessarily shrinkflation, it is inflation in terms of the price. But that's a 50% markup. Now, again, on £1, it's nothing. But if everything had a 50% markup, you'd quickly notice it. And obviously it's hurting the pocket.
It sounds like you aren't supporting your government. We need more ESG policies and more lockdowns.
You're not a patriot, you should be deported.
Well,
when I was saying to my wife,
do is I'll join Mrs. No Show as she's probably protesting somewhere in a gay rally for these things
outside of Starbucks.
Indeed.
But I remember saying to my wife about the lockdowns, I said, I hope this is worth it, because the amount of inflation which is going to happen is going to be through the roof. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
And if they aren't doing it at the appropriate time, we are fucked. And it's getting worse and worse. And what have we had in America? The Inflation Act. What do they do in the Inflation Act? They print shitloads of money for the first 3 years to compound the issue. And then they stop printing on, what is it, the fourth or fifth year?
It's even worse than that. 5 years of printing, 5 years of getting it all back.
So they're hoping that the Republicans take over for that next 5 years then?
Yeah, Biden's term will end just after the printing can finish. It's
He should be dead.
Hand over the baton to another government. Yeah. Good luck. You've got to cut everything now. Guess what? They ain't going to cut shit.
He should be dead by then.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, it's crazy though, right? So literally, not only and it's a great point, because sometimes you go, how do they get the CPI numbers so low? Like, we know to a certain extent how they do it, because they take out the high inflation items and go, oh, that's an exceptional year, and we take out the outliers to get a sensible number of CPI. That sounds reasonable, that when you look at it and then you suddenly go, what are the exception items this year? Oh, energy, beef, chicken. And you go, hold on, that's not like a random, like, computer game, or the PS5 or something, or something just really random that okay, during any one year, like there's going to be exceptional items. These are normal, typical household items, so you can see the scam there. But then when you look into
it'd be great to.
Go on.
I was just going to say, it'd be great to actually have a basket which someone puts together off these items. So housing, either rental or bought, energy, so gas, electricity, water, council tax raises, chicken, or of the items which someone would typically use within a week. So rice, chicken, potatoes, carrots, and collect that blend, cereals, milks, and put it together and go, literally, here's £100 shop, and here's the typical household items. Here's a car lease and everything else and fuel, and go, this is your actual increase. Because the CPI bucket is just, even in the fiat world, even believers in the Keynesian process, they know it's a pile of shit. No one takes it seriously.
It's like realcpi.com, just an actual real basket of goods and how it's changing.
Yeah.
Is it what the CPI should be doing? Like, if someone actually did it, really, it'd be great to know the real number, because as we know, energy's going up by in the hundreds of percent. Meat's going up. I had to buy some wood, this week, repairing a chicken coop that I'm trying to bring back to life. It's been in rack and ruin for at least a decade, I reckon. Just buying some long poles of wood with some slats that join it and some chicken wire. How much do you reckon a 3-inch by 3-inch pole that's about 7 foot tall, how much do you reckon that will cost?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Should cost no more than 15-20 quid.
Yeah, £90 per pole. Yeah. So luckily, the only reason I even bought any of them was because I already have them, really. The bottoms have rotten off, so I just need to buy. I bought like 2 or 3 of them to shove on the bottom, so I can chop them up. If I had to build a whole chicken coop with these things, it would cost me about £1,500 just to build a tiny. When at least I say tiny, say it's about 10 meters by 3. Unfortunately, the poles are largely all there. The price of wood is insane. It's completely insane. Like, it's just, you can't build anything anymore, and obviously then seeing this shrinkflation thing, it's just. You just go, oh my God, it's even worse than we think. Even if someone was to track the basket of goods, right? You'd want the person tracking the basket of goods to go, oh, make sure the quantities are the same, because you can't just say a toothpaste or whatever. It has to be 100 mils of toothpaste, because the packets went down to 75. So you have to buy 1 1/4 packets, really, to have what you used to have. So it's kind of nuts that the real inflation numbers, we're being told that maybe it's getting close to 10% on a bad month, but really it's probably around 5. You look at this kind of stuff and go, look, the real price of items is going up by 15 to 20, and shrinkflation is also happening at 10 to 20 the other way. That means real inflation is around 40%.
Yeah.
And we all know the magic number is 50 to hit hyperinflation, which basically means we're out of control. This really could mean we are very close to hyperinflation here in the Western world. This is...
So just had a quick Google while we're talking, and there's a website called the Food Foundation. Obviously, I haven't really checked upon it, and it's got some examples of baskets. So it's got men's and women's baskets, typical, I think it's things like milk and whatever a man would buy. And it's currently saying a basket's about £51.81. Now, if we go back a year, it's saying it's £42.53. So it's an increase of roughly about £10. So that is 25% increase, isn't it?
Well, in how long? A year? Or?
Yeah. So that's that's the stuff where the prices will be battered down because it's smaller items and mass produced. There's lots of subsidies across food on things like milk, grain, etc. Whereas you kind of like metals and raw materials are where you see the typical price increases go through the roof.
Yeah, it is nuts. I think I mentioned it before, but talking to the farmers out here, they're being paid not to farm, and they're trying to farm. They're trying to farm meat, and they're being taxed and they have to keep badgers alive, which give their cows TB, and they're being incentivized to basically kill their cows and their sheep and their chickens because they're just too expensive and too difficult to run, and almost being paid to do nothing.
I saw that on Jeremy Clarkson. Like, he wasn't allowed to kill badgers. It's just like, why? If there's TB in that area, kill them all.
Yeah. No one seems to have a real answer for that. And it's like the farmers like me, and they're getting paid a fortune to not do farming. And you just go, why is the government paying people to not farm? Why wouldn't you just stay the fuck away and let farmers produce crops that the market wants and pay them a fair market rate for those goods?
They're closing down in the Netherlands, aren't they?
What?
They closed down a load of them in the Netherlands. And they're like, oh, they're really bad for the environment. It's just like, well, what about your fucking private yachts and private jets?
And you would go, what? Food's bad for the environment? What would you rather, the environment thrive and you be dead? Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
It just seems, I think it's a push towards plant-based goods.
I was going to say, what's going to be the alternative? And
but when I say plant, I mean factory produced.
The thing is, what they know, right? This is that everything we talk about, really, whenever it comes to fiat, they're preparing for the collapse. CBDC is preparing for the collapse, moving away from real farming into giving us sludge, preparing for the collapse.
It's so we're dependent. That's why the sludge.
Yeah.
But also, what's really funny, so the fake meat and all these kind of like fake products, which are big vegan things, was in the last couple of weeks have been heavily linked to cancer.
Fake?
Yeah, like, you know, I always thought you can't just produce something out of chemicals, and now it's started to come out. They're really fucking bad for you.
Of course they are. Like, Jesus, who thinks that something grown in some lab is not going to be as good
with 200 ingredients?
Yeah, and all artificial, as opposed to a grass-fed cow, the most natural thing you can get. You know, it's so dumb. But yeah, it's kind of scary, right? Because the farmers around me, that they're carrying on, but they're all aging. The farmers I talk to now, they're in their 50s, their dad's in his 70s. And once you can almost see that once they die out, what's happening is they sell off their land. And by and large, they sell it to people like me, unfortunately, but then also just random companies that just buy up, and they tend to be huge companies. Or just to people that just don't do farming on the land, which is people like me, really, where I don't do mass farming. I'm looking to build citadel level farming for myself, but I'm not going to contribute back into the wider thing, right? So my land before was owned by them. They sold bits of it off. They used to have cattle and stuff on my land. They've cut a lot of that back now because of the TB, and they'd rather just own loads of fields that they just shove a load of sheep on to keep it cut nice and short. But they get paid to do nothing. And you just go, and once they die out, like all their knowledge of how to do farming, of cattle, sheep, chickens, dies with them. And so slowly but surely, all these people are just disappearing. And before we know it, the only farms of cattle and sheep and like chickens, they're going to be abroad somewhere on some mystical country. And
if you've read your kind of history,
you have to, like, I don't know, suck off Joe Biden or something. I don't know.
But if you've read your history of like money and food, ultimately like US based, in the 70s when they caused mass inflation to get the food prices down, they pushed super farms. And it's always a sign. So when all these like small farms got knocked out of the way and they made these super farms, so literally they'd be, you know, that's where all things like the caged hens came from, so the battery eggs and so on, because they just had the maximum amount of food per square inch on that farm. And it was, I think the head of treasury, what they're called, it was like get big or get out is what he said. And it's basically when they cause the price to go so up, they incentivize all these super farms to come along in order to get the prices back down for the public. And it is, you know, where do you go from now? Because you've got these super farms. We import like beef from Argentina where it's fuck cheap, but they can't hide it anymore. And that's why you're going on to the sludge. and you see all these vegans who are like, "Oh,
And
Beyond
do you
Meat,
think
it's
that's
better."
why Bill Gates was buying up all the farms?
Oh, of course, he's growing fucking soy on it.
Exactly.
And more importantly, he was buying up all the water sources as well.
But
Mm,
I'll give you an example. So you kind of go, "Oh, that's a pile of rubbish." So what's he started slating lately?
Meat.
pass.
The vaccinations for COVID.
Okay.
What did he sell? What did he sell his position in a couple of months ago?
did he really?
Pfizer.
Yeah, I was listening.
Where's the clip? I haven't seen the clip of Bill Gates slating the vaccinations.
Have a quick Google. I'll have to send it to you. But he's basically said, "Oh, they're not good enough. Blah blah blah. Then not very good at stopping transmission. Blah blah blah." And he said this a couple of months after he sold it. So I read it and I've seen the clip, and also it's mentioned again, which is why it's fresh in my mind because Joe Rogan had Russell Brand on his show and we talked about it.
Right.
Yeah, there seems to be that they've flipped the narrative to suddenly now. Oh yeah, it was in China. Yeah, the vaccines didn't work. As if they're going, yeah, that's the normal position. What you're saying? You're saying we don't admit that. You don't have a win here. Like, okay, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Can you move on to the next story?
Yeah, let's do it. Next story is what we've always said, unfortunately, that they might do, and we covered it again in a couple of pods previously, which is Nationwide Bank and HSBC Bank, for non-UK listeners and watchers, are high street retail banks, typically found across the UK, but they are both cracking down on allowing the everyday average citizen to be able to off-ramp or on-ramp, depending on, of course, on which way you're going, if you're buying and selling in terms of Bitcoin and onto exchanges. So essentially, if you have a Nationwide bank account or a HSBC bank account, you can no longer send money to an exchange with their facilities, and naturally you can't take money off and back into there. So this, of course, is hurting the everyday man. Shout out to you and everybody else. And this is their way, I guess, of combating against Bitcoin. Because if you do that, then you have to, of course, go an alternative route. So naturally, you go to a bank that does allow you to do so, maybe a Monzo or a Revolut or so forth. But they're also seeing the money that they get, which banks obviously profit from depositors. So when your monthly wage goes in, it's going out to things like this, and they don't want that to happen. And so to combat that, they'll crack down on allowing people to take their money off.
But there's two sides to this one. There's a credit card and there's a debit card. So like the credit card, I'm kind of going, okay, I get this because it's gambling. And you can't gamble against a credit card. Like, you've got to pay it off. You can't be going, I'm going to use all my credit card limit of 10 grand or whatever it is on SHIB or something. I mean, it sinks and you're fucked and you can't repay the bank. So it's in a way similar to, what do they call it, responsible gambling. Yeah. It's trying to cut out. But when I look at debit cards, I'm a bit like, how can you tell someone what to do with their money? It is their money, is excess savings, and you're kind of going, I don't believe you should be able to stop someone limiting. Admittedly, it is 5k, but that 5k will soon be 1k. It'll soon be £500. It'll soon be £100. It'll soon be 50, and it goes all the way down. So I'm big against that, but I think there are two sides to this, and obviously it's written by Bitcoin Magazine, so they're always going to go stop people going to Bitcoin, even if it's on credit card. But I wouldn't advise people to use debt to buy anything.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yeah, because when you're buying a debt, essentially you're buying the bank's money. So of course they can say what they want you to spend that money on, and usually they'll ask you for a reason, won't they? When you're buying with debt, they go, "Is this for a car, for an extension?" And if you do just say, I'm just going to YOLO into SHIB, they'll go, right, well, the odds on you having any money back is going to be zero. So what other assets have you got? Because you're going to need to sell them to pay me back. And then they can take a risk-based decision and go, maybe we won't lend you that money. And then I understand. From the
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's fine. Like literally any lender can put any restrictions on why they do and do not lend money. But yeah, completely where the line is drawn is when it is your money. Now suddenly them putting a limit at 5K a day on you being able to buy crypto, let's just say it's Bitcoin, it's just disgusting, right? It's just what?
Yeah.
So they're stopping you going all in, really. They're stopping.
It's treating you like a child as well.
Yeah. Because imagine, like, still over 5K a day, like, that's still, to be fair, it's still a huge amount of money. Like, I could get a lot of money into Bitcoin during 5K a day.
Yeah.
But
it won't really change your balance, though.
What, from $1 trillion? No, not really.
Yeah.
But it is disgusting, right? It just shows that this is a sign of things to come. They are going
and it won't just be 5K. It'll get lower.
It's going to go down to
lower. Exactly.
It's going to be like £50. Because that's the thing. They won't ban it because banning it is too much of a big kind of story to go, oh, it's banned from buying Bitcoin. Instead, you go, no, we regulate.
This is where they start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just,
and it gets tighter and tighter.
It's a risk-based approach to looking after our customers from the volatile, dangerous, Ponzi-like world that is Bitcoin. We're protecting our customers. We still let our customers buy Bitcoin. You go, oh, how much? Like £5 a month. And you go, okay, you have banned Bitcoin. It's just you're letting a tiny sliver of the amount of money flowing out of fiat into Bitcoin continue. So it's another signal for anyone listening that is not all in on Bitcoin or thinks they're going to wait until some of the price goes down or the signs are more rosy. The off ramp from fiat into Bitcoin is going to get tougher. It's one of these weird things, right? When I got into Bitcoin, getting fiat into Bitcoin was tough. The off ramps were tough because they weren't built yet. Now they are built, but the banks are knocking them down again. So I think we're kind of in almost that perfect stage right now where it's very easy to buy Bitcoin. And so, but people are still sometimes just waiting for, I don't know, something to happen. And it's almost like it's going to go in a curve where it's very tough to buy Bitcoin at the beginning because the on-ramps weren't built. And then we got to a perfect stage where the on-ramps were built, but then the on-ramps started getting destroyed. And now it's tough again. And bizarrely, you're going to be buying Bitcoin at a crazy high price and the off-ramps are going to be hard. You're going to have to take your money out of one bank account, put it into another bank account, send it over to fucking Angola, Angolian bank account, and from Angola, buy Bitcoin on an Angolian exchange, send it to your ledger. You don't want to be in that world. Just do it now, whilst most banks allow you to send whatever money you want to a Bitcoin exchange, convert your money to Bitcoin.
So at the moment, you've got like Revolut who don't bother you, but anyone who's going to have like a European or Western or any of the main countries' banking licenses, they're going to be required to do this. So, Revolut aren't going to be a safe place soon.
No.
It's all going to follow suit. And you're right, I was about to correct you when you're halfway through when you said Angolian bank. You are going to need some magic like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So who's going on holiday to Angola? We need to send some documents.
Or El Salvador, probably.
Yeah. So what's the way around this?
Do it fucking now, bro.
Yeah.
Do it now and just keep on DCAing because you'll be able to get your DCA amount through still.
Yeah. Like I said, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve, right? So right now the price is good. Price is 65% off all-time high. It's fucking cheap as chips. Do it now. As time goes on, the price will go up and the ability to buy will probably go down. That's what's likely to happen because we're almost at, we talk about the ease of onboarding and all that kind of stuff and the customer experience of how you buy Bitcoin. I think in reality, we're probably at the peak of both of those things. and we could go way better. It could be way easier to buy Bitcoin, but the problem is we're hitting now against the institutions and the banks that essentially are going to start trying to fight back on our ability to allow people to buy Bitcoin. So I would say this is now almost the preface of you can literally buy Bitcoin, like you said, on Revolut, click of a couple of buttons. I don't think that's going to be the case in 5 years. I think that's going to get taken away. And if you can buy Bitcoin, it'll be stored on Revolut. You won't be able to withdraw it and stuff. That type of bollocks. So this is all coming. So the way to do it is buy it before the ban. We can see it coming. All the flags are here. All the canaries in the coal mine are fucking dead. You're staring at them. Don't think they all just died of a heart attack through coincidence. These are dying because there is toxic gases coming from the coal mine, and you need to run out of it. And by running out of it, I mean buy Bitcoin now.
I'd also look at it as a sign they are scared. And, and again, people talk about Bitcoin being a Ponzi scheme. Well, if it's such a Ponzi scheme, why wouldn't they let you just buy it? If it's going to die a death, let it. But really, they know that there's weight to what Bitcoin actually does for people. And that's why they don't want you to do so, because they have no control over it ultimately. And the control that they're trying to do is to bully you to not be able to get involved with it.
You just made me think, because I do the spare change thing in Revolut. I've totally forgotten about that. And that's building up quite nicely.
You withdraw that. They upped the withdrawal limits hugely a couple of months ago.
And they've upped them.
Yeah, by like 10x. You can get.
I remember it was a pain in the arse to get out originally.
Yeah, it's like £500 a day, £1,000 a month, and I think they upped it to like 10k a day or something. It's just
probably because they didn't have the right license to be able to allow people to do so. But surprise, surprise, I bet they weren't being granted the license. So they would have had to have jumped through a number of hoops in order to be able to do that. And then, of course, they passed on that benefit to customers. Because don't forget, when Revolut continued to adopt new customers, those new customers are typically customers of the traditional banks now no longer using them and moving to them. And so you're putting, again, more money from point A, which was them, to point B, and then you're realizing, wow, all these cool features and things that I could do over here, as opposed to not being able to do over there. I'm not going to use them anymore, and they're my new bank.
Yeah, it's really annoying, Revolut, because they had their limits set really low. And I think for the last 18 months, I've been withdrawing the maximum every single month. And just when I was getting down to the bottom, they 10x the fucking limits. I'm like,
well, this is why you're $1 trillion man. No bank can handle your money.
I'd messaged their support so many times going, please, like, what do you need from me to allow me just to withdraw this properly? You shouldn't be holding this much of my spare change in Bitcoin. I know it's my fault for making it this big, but I need to withdraw this faster than you're allowing me. And they just went, our risk and compliance officers won't allow us. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then randomly they messaged me going, oh, you can withdraw like 10k a day now or something. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, where was this a year ago? Anyway, last story of the week.
Yep.
A new Bitcoin idea, Stratum. V2.
V2.
They get it from Bitcoin Magazine, but yeah, so it's Bitcoin mining is centralizing, but how real is the risk of network censorship? And can a protocol called Stratum V2 save the industry?
Yeah, this was an interesting story, I guess, because if we look back, and I'll just pluck a number of, say, like roughly 18 months ago, the majority of the Bitcoin mining was in China. And the US weren't interested in Bitcoin mining. Of course, they were doing it, but not to the same extent. Fast forward to where we are right now, and over 50%, 52 in total, is actually done in the US and controlled by two major companies, with 34 and 18% respectively. So this is a real key thing, because ultimately they could manipulate the market if they were to work in tandem with one another. And the whole point of Bitcoin is that it is decentralized and that no one can own anything. So
remember, right? So the one thing, right? So I will share the screen actually just now, so you can see the charts we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it looks scary, right? So you've got Founder USA with 33.8, and you've got Ample,
that's right,
18.4. So when you add those two numbers together, you get over 51%, right? So the 51% is the magic number. That means you can kind of double spend transactions. That's, oh shit, Bitcoin's broken. But remember, these are pools. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that sit behind these that just link into the pool. Right?
So the kind of software which they use for these pools, because there's going to be software running, the kind of like messages which they send across, is there anything which could be a risk in that?
Yeah, well, to be fair, that isn't what I realized, because this is something where it is good when this type of thing comes out, because I just thought, what the fuck is Stratum V2 really? Because these things just run, like you just join a pool, and the only difference is instead of like me competing on my own, I'm competing with, say, 1 million other miners, but then when we get a block, I get 1/1,000,000th of the reward. That's it. But then, yeah, you're right. There is software that links those things together. And that is the danger. That is what I think this article essentially points out, which is, I think it's down here, which essentially goes, yeah, there is software that links the pools to the miners, which I think is what's distributing all the mining reward. And that's a risk, because it still means that, okay, these miners aren't necessarily one single entity. They could all flip to any pool at one time. They can start mining themselves at any one time. However, there is software that sits in between, which could be manipulated in some shape or form, which is some form of centralization, which is bad. We don't want any centralization in Bitcoin. It can be corrupted. And yeah, so it does. So this software that sits in between the pools and the miners could introduce the 51% attack again, which essentially means you could double spend a transaction. You could potentially change the rules of Bitcoin, change the scarcity, change the supply.
Do you think, like in normal fiat companies where you have voting rights, do you have voting rights when you're in this pool?
No, you don't.
No, you're just a commodity, really.
Yeah. It's just one of them, isn't it? Yeah. You just all you're doing is adding hash power. So the amount of hash power you add is the percent of the block rewards you will get if they hit a block reward. It's just that. It's all about hash power. But you have no say over anything that happens on the network necessarily. That's the nodes tend to do that, actually.
Yeah. Because really and truly, it goes back to what I was saying before. If I'm looking at that chart and I can see the various different percentages, I'm probably just going to go with Foundry USA, because they've got the largest percentage and therefore the largest opportunity for me to get a Bitcoin reward back for my hash power. Why would I ever go into something like I'll just put Luxor with 1.09%?
Yeah, I suppose it's like with anything, isn't it? You're kind of gambling a little bit.
Yeah, because, of course, if they win,
Luxor might get 2% of the block rewards, even though they only offer 1% the hash rate. So you would double your rewards. Whereas a foundry that are offering 33% of the hash rate, they might only achieve 25% of the block reward.
Yeah.
They might achieve 50 because it's still a lottery, right? It's like a game. This is like a hand of poker. You have 33% chance of winning the hand. Doesn't mean you win the hand, right? It's just one of them.
Yeah.
It mentions as well about the marathon. So I think I remember is either talking or covering a story in that they only wanted to process blocks with OFAC compliant transactions, and everyone just ignored it and didn't sign into it. So this is like, you've got the 51% thing, but there's also this aspect that they start making it into compliant transactions or some other shit which Bitcoiners didn't ask for. They tried to force them, but I think all the miners just went, no, we're not opting to this. They said, we're not going to pay you. And everyone just went, no. And it fell on its arse very quickly. Less than a month.
Yeah. Yeah, that did not go well for them. Yeah. I like how they called it the Marapool precedent. Because they decided it's OFAC compliant transactions, yeah. So they tried to literally blacklist certain types of Bitcoin to not be sent. And that did not go well. But apparently what this Stratum V2 allows you to do, which not only is what they're trying to do here, which seems to be is not only can you not censor blocks, because you don't know necessarily what block you're even processing, but it also takes away that software that is connected to pools. So it should enable each individual miner to build its own candidate block, removing this power from the pool. So I think essentially it's really what it means. This is the thing, I'm a little bit dumb to this because I've never mined before, so I've never done it. I've just seen some of the theory. What seems to be happening here is when you mine a block in a pool, like the pool kind of sorts out the block reward and who does what with it. All the rules tend to happen at that level. What Stratum is suggesting it wants to do is knock that down to go, no, the individual miner that actually got the block, he gets to decide what happens. Which suddenly now goes, okay, the reward, I'm assuming, will still be shared across the pool because I'm part of a pool. I've agreed to that. But my individual miner decides what it does. So if there's some kind of censorship bollocks at the top of the pool, or they want to change the rules of Bitcoin at the top of a pool, that's just, I don't care. I'm part of the pool, but my miner is signaling no OFAC restrictions, no changes to Bitcoin. Fine, the block rewards happen and get distributed, but nothing, no change. So this suddenly then it seems like a great change, right? It kind of takes the power of pools is still here because, of course, people want to join pools to increase their chances of winning and getting a block reward. But the power of the pool of that middle layer of software that seemingly this is new to me, right? I didn't know they had certain level of control of whether, what rules get applied to the blocks, whether they can censor blocks or not. This takes that away from them, which I'm hugely in favor of. Okay, I don't know if you saw Peter Todd's comments in this article. They're fucking terrifying because Peter Todd is one of the OGs, like literally spoke to Satoshi when he was 13, 14. I'll show him on the screen now. So Peter Todd, who is, spoke to Satoshi when he was like 14, 15. His latest quotes are, Bitcoin is dead, mining is over, they will regulate Bitcoin, censorship will come.
Wow.
And Peter Todd is one of the people I respect the most in Bitcoin. And so it's terrifying to hear him say that. However, I also know he's a developer. I also know he's very pessimistic. And he's very much, he needs to see the whole solution now. So I don't think he's right on this. At least I fucking hope he ain't. Because it's just, obviously what he's pointing to here is the fact that mining is just so centralized in America now. They're going to come and regulate it. then eventually they're going to force these huge miners to start censoring transactions. And he's right. Bitcoin's dead then, right? It's like we always said about Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is no longer scarce, it's no longer decentralized, or is no longer censorship resistant, if it fails one of those three things, then Bitcoin is no longer the Bitcoin we brought. And censorship resistance is huge to that.
What about if everyone just went back to being individuals instead of pools?
Yeah, you could, yeah. You could, but I think the argument would be it's not profitable to do that.
No, not right now, yeah.
If you're not part of a pool, you don't make money, which is why everyone's part of a pool. And then they censor the pools, and then before you know it, everyone on the sanctions list that exists in fiat world now, they're back on the sanction list for Bitcoin. So guess what? El Salvador, sanction list. Venezuela, sanction list. Argentina, sanction list. And that's something they're cut off from Bitcoin now. You're not allowed to send a Bitcoin transaction to El Salvador. How many El Salvadorans are going to be using Bitcoin now when it's on the sanction list and no one can use it? The use case is dead, right? It's back to fiat. So we need to make sure Bitcoin is censorship resistant. And I think this, without me realizing it, because I didn't really know how pools worked or how mining worked, Stratum V2, holy shit, we need it.
Yeah, we need it. I do think about when they've in the past tried to ban other things like alcohol and you had the prohibition, you maybe get some sort of freedom pool or a dark pool in terms of people that would try to then get together as opposing to it, because wherever you've got bad, you've always got some good, and there will always be that consensus among Bitcoiners to be like, well, we don't even care if we're making a loss, we'll still do it. Now, of course, the majority of all of the Bitcoin miners, they're in it for the profit. Let's not get it twisted. They have built, as we've said, football-sized stadiums full of miners. The equipment cost around $5,000 each, all within order to make a profit. So, I don't see that happening overnight, but there will always be someone that's ready to be like, okay, I'll fight the good fight. Watch the space.
Dr. Evil, I think he's clocked out.
Either that or he's on his OnlyFans subscription already.
Yeah, of course.
I think he'd already ends it ready for his post-pod wank.
I've already finished. I think it's one of those things, because I've never been in mining space, it's hard to fully understand. From what I've read in the article, it does seem like it's the right track by anonymizing it all. So you can't send or change any kind of the messages or mess around with the protocol. But, like I said, my kind of knowledge isn't as high, and it does need to come. Like Peter Todd, unfortunately, is right.
What, Bitcoin is dead? Fuck.
No, I mean, as in, it could lead, as in he's been very pessimistic, but it is something which could happen.
Mm.
So it needs to evolve before something happens. Like we saw it with, I've forgotten what their name was now, Marathon.
Yeah.
In the fact that they tried something, they're obviously somehow linked to the government, and they tried it in order to get it in, try and sneak it in rather than being forced. So the next one it'll be enforced somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we still need to get our mining rigs fucking set up and go into
Good thing is,
one thing I've never really gone into, and I genuinely think more people need to get into mining, because
I think it's a cost. You don't join a pool. Yeah, exactly. You do it and then you join a pool because of the cost of energy.
Yeah,
and we don't live in an energy efficient.
You think a rig will cost you, what is it, between 5 and 10 grand? Then how much will the energy cost you for the year? Will it be a couple of grand or something?
That's why you need to fire up solar. You need to have renewable energy to be able to run the thing.
Or be in a country where energy is cheap.
Yeah, which
Qatar.
we're not, are we, right? So
No,
we're not going to move.
exactly.
Yeah, so I thought about this for a while, like trying to set up a shit ton of solar, get a lot of miners. The thing is that the first step, right, is just figuring out how it all works, right? And yeah, of course, you probably join the pool, but you go, do I need to? Can I join myself? Can I get it profitable? And just in case, let's just assume, right, that Peter Todd is right in this instance, and the pools get corrupted. Well, now what? Can you mine direct? You're going to have to, because there's going to be a huge demand for transactions that are not censored. So they're going to need you. They're going to need you to process the transactions. And it's part of us as the community. We can't look around and go, oh, the government need to do blah, blah, blah. No, it's us. Bitcoin is us. We need to figure this shit out.
What you can do is you could use a kind of like dynamo in your Fitbit and then run it off that. So when you're jacking off, it powers it up. You'd win all the awards.
Mining blocks for days.
Right. Well, there we have it. That was Pod 89, brought to you by your usual and regular 4Bs, Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show was still once again Pod 89 and No Show.
But inequality higher.
Peace.